everybody. I want to thank you all for having me out today. Rachel, everybody here. We traveled from the other side of the state, and we are just excited to be here to meet you guys and to do whatever we can to pass on tips. We are fairly new homesteaders. I'm always I'll admit, a little intimidated. I mean, it's intimidating to say what I think a homesteader should be doing when you've got a gentleman that knows nothing but homesteading and he's 84 years old. You get that look, So, it's that sort of. But surprisingly, new homesteaders are teaching older homesteaders newer things. I live in a community now where no one but us and one other family practically has internet. So a lot of times these old timers, you're doing things or you're hearing things or you're reading things, GMOs, organic gardening. Once they listen to you just a hair or they try your method once, you're not so crazy. So that's a good thing. So there is a transition in homesteading. Just to give a little background about myself, just so you kind of know what we're doing. I'm originally from Knoxville, born and raised, UT Hospital, all the way over down through there. And like many folks nowadays, I didn't grow up on a farm. No bones about it. Didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up around old generations, though. And I, like Misty or anybody else, we're doing all these things in front of you, but baby, get out of the kitchen. We don't want you to get hurt. So, you press forward, and grew up in West Knoxville when West Knoxville was called Concord, and there was nothing there. So it was rural in life, but, again, the setting was very different than probably a farm like this. So pressing forward, I went to the University of Tennessee and got married and had babies and whatnot. And just to put it real short and sweet, I'm not real sure specifically. I call it my Great Awakening. A couple years ago, several years ago, I walked out on my back porch and I realized if I had to be self-sufficient for my 3 children, could I do it? The answer was no. I had a concept of gardening. I had a beautiful landscape. I had the prettiest crepe myrtles in the neighborhood, okay? But could I be self-sufficient? And I don't know. I don't know if it's because of losing a grandparent. I don't know if it's because of the economic situations that the country has faced. I think it's a collaboration of things, but mainly I'm going to tell you, I think it was God saying, you better pay attention. So from that point forward, we decided to, I did, and I spoke with my sweet husband here, and I thought he's going to think I'm crazy, and he didn't think I was crazy, so that was positive. So we pressed forward with an urban homestead. We pressed forward with, my main thing was, there's only so much I can do, so what are those things, first and foremost, and if I can't do all of these things that I think I should be doing, what skills can I learn in the setting that I'm in? So that's where we pressed forward. Taught myself how to can. Grew up around canning. I can't tell you how many stories of endless canning that I witnessed. But did I know how to can, green beans? Nope. So I went to Walmart, bought the ball canning book, and I made myself learn how to can, which fully transitioned over into self-defense, baking, cast iron, wood cooking. It's just an endless sea of skills. That's what homesteading to me is about. Most people say, well, it's growing up around your papa on the farm. Yes, and there's a big movement for things with the homesteading movement. I don't have a problem with that. You got to have stuff. But at the end of the day, is the stuff going to make you a good homesteader? I'm finding out real quick that's no. So we're just going to talk about basically a lot of folks. I am on Facebook, I am on YouTube, and my whole deal is taking folks along on our journey to show them, not, old Fred that lives down behind me, but the newer folks, what it encompasses, because people want to know. People want to know. They want to know, they want to do, they don't know where to go to, so they turn to YouTube, they turn to, Misty Prepper, they turn to different things like that, because the folks that they have memories of doing these things is no longer around, and so that's where they're coming to. So, long story short, so we started urban homesteading, if you want to call it. That's the chic thing to call it. And, we went from, the first thing we did was to develop a very large garden, and you can do a lot in the neighborhood. Don't let anybody tell you that. I know a lot of you here probably have more acreage than I do, and you're like, okay. But it's true, because it's important to stress that, because even if you're already on a farm and you're totally doing everything that people dream of doing, there's going to be people asking you questions. They're going to want to know how they can transition or what they can do. That's what I did. I went to the people that I knew. I said, help me. What do we need to do? If you were me, how would you do it, and on what scale? So we started out with gardening. We ended up having a 1,000 square foot garden in a backyard in the neighborhood. That's not a big garden to what we do now, but that's a pretty big garden. You can get a lot of self-sufficiency out of 1,000 square feet if you're doing things right. It turned into composting, fruit trees, herbs. We could have chickens where we lived. So, and that's what you have. If you are in a neighborhood, I have to be politically correct and tell you that you should check your code, okay? And which you should. I mean, because the reality is you don't want to take something on and then you are told you have to be rid of it. That's not fair to the sweet hens. So, because you probably can't have a rooster. But we eventually made the jump to moving to the country. And so that's what I'm going to go over today, because the main questions that I get is, how did you go from urban to country? And just, a flurry of questions. So I kind of just went through and thought about and wrote down what are my most common questions. Honestly, the approach that I'm going to tell you in a fast form, because all of these are big subjects, is any woman that's ever had a baby will agree that the first time you go through a whole pregnancy, there are many things that no one told you was going to happen. And you go through that process, or you go, wish I'd have known that was going to happen. So it's the same thing here. If you're going from city to serious serious country life, it's a very big move. You may be cute in your cowboy boots, but when you get up there, it's way different. So, trust me when I tell you, this is going to do this a couple of times. Yeah, those cowboy boots look cute down there on Tennessee Boulevard, but it ain't the same up on the mountain. So, yeah. All right, so the thing that you have to think about first, and I've got about 2 photos just to kind of go with each thing here, if I can get it rolling good. Thanks to my 15-year-old, who is my genius. What are your goals? Why do you want a homestead? Everybody's answer is different. Nobody is the same. Your goals are different. Your likes are different. You gravitate to certain animals. Are you just tired of the city? Maybe you're being very successful on an urban homestead and you want to go bigger. Thank the Lord, that was pretty much where we ended up being. It just got to the point where this is working so well and we love this so much and that is going great and look what my kids can do, and that we just wanted to go big or go home, and we continue that path. But are you trying to get back to your roots? Are you trying to develop skills? I will tell you that I think that skills are the #1 thing with homesteading, if you really think about it. But a lot of those things can be learned in an urban setting. But if you want to go big, again, you can't probably milk a cow with the HOA. It might be a problem. So you may want to go forth. So think about that. What are your goals? One of the best homesteaders I know, she lives out in Muddy Pond, out way past Nashville, and she's been doing this. She comes from Knoxville, ironically, and she moved out there, and she will look at me dead in the face if I start talking about something, and she'll go, "What is your goal?" And that just brings me home to say, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that yet, or rethink this, or she brings it home to what are your goals. That's simple, but that's #1. The next thing I'm going to talk about, so that we had what are your goals, and I'm going to mess with this. So for me, I wanted to expand on gardening, and I wanted to expand on poultry. And I wanted roosters. I like having roosters on my farm. Most folks do not. In some ways they find them intimidating or whatnot, and they can have their issues. You can handle that. But I wanted to expand on that, so that was a big bonus for us in terms of moving from the city to the country, and that is Boss Hog, by the way. That is Boss Hog. The next thing you need to think about, what is this hot mess? I know. When you decide to leave the city or wherever you're currently living, and we're going out, we're going to sticks, okay? We're getting out. You better think about, number one, do you still have a job that you have to drive to? The drive can get really old really fast. Do you have a child maybe that has special needs? Do you have medical needs? Are you going to have to be going back to the doctor a lot? Do you homeschool? Are you affiliated with a homeschool co-op? This was my old job. So that's why I couldn't think of, well, let's show my old picture. I'm a graduate gemologist and was a television gemstone and jewelry salesperson for jewelry television in Knoxville. So that's my old life. It's changed a lot. So your job, I mean, you know, are you going to be driving 60 miles back and forth every day? If you're milking a cow and you're tending to the chickens, because you're taking on that responsibility, okay, that stuff's coming. It's not going to, no one else is going to do it for you. That 1 hour drive back and forth to work every day becomes an issue. So think about proximity, think about things like that. Folks don't think about that until they're in it, and then, you know, they've really got to deal with that. The next thing that I'm going to talk to you about, this is my son, big in piano. He's great. For your children, if there's things that your children do in a certain area, and most moms are not going to give up certain things for the kids, that's going to stick. You have to think about driving those kids and those teenagers. So that's what we do there. I know it's little, I'm sorry. He's mean. When you move anywhere, especially to a rural area, or anywhere, please do your homework in terms of safety. People don't think about that. We had a deal lined up with the most beautiful farmhouse, acreage barn, the whole 9 yards, and something said, you know, maybe you should get on Watchdog, just research the area. I had a rapist 1 mile down the road. No. I think that goes without saying. Know what's around you, know the precautions that you have to take in terms of safety. Who's around you? What do your neighbors do? Is there something environmental that you don't want to be next to that maybe you didn't even know was there, or something's going on that may be a health issue for you or your children? Lots of stories about different things about that, but we'll hold off. So I tell people, please research the area. You would be surprised what you find. And there's a reason. If you found the perfect place and something's down the road and they're so bummed out and they just don't want to give it up, I'm sorry, that's a sign saying don't do it. So that's my personal, keep looking, keep looking. All right, the next big thing, which is where a lot of people start this type of communication with you, is you better get land. What are your resources? Well, I say go with those first three first, and then go to when you leave and you move up to the mountain, like we did. What resources do you need for different reasons? We can talk about off-grid living, we can talk about the grid going down and all these things, but the reality is do you have resources to help you even when the grid is up? Do you have a pond? How are you going to water your animals? Do you have perhaps a spring? Are you near a larger water source? If you're going to switch to wood heat, do you have access to woods? Things of that nature. I can tell you that moving from Knoxville up to the mountain area, that even though we are on the grid in terms of having electricity, that's only about 50% of the time in the winter. So, you know, even though I am connected to the grid, I have to be dependent upon wood heat. You're going to hate your life there if you don't. Propane is your option, but when you're paying $3.99 a gallon, no, it's not. So you learn real quick that your resources play a major deal in that. Another thing that goes along with that is when you're looking at a property, as we found out, even later on, if you already have a barn, small barn, a shed that you can convert, fencing, different things like that you think, oh, I'll just add that. Well, you'll add that and this and that and that and that and that $20,000 later too, but if you have things that you already, you know, maybe you like the property and you've got a few resources working out for you, and you've got a barn and you've got a coop, that's really important if you're going to be adding livestock to your area. So we went to safety. We're talking about resources. I'm telling you, water. Water's really a big deal. I mean, you can't live without it, right? So that's a no-brainer for most of you all. You know this already. But having that, whether it's a well, spring, creek, of some source at a minimum that can help you in a crisis situation is going to be great. This has been the best thing we've added to our homestead besides our dairy cow. I have to say that about her. Wasn't cheap to add to the house. The house originally was with the wood stove. They pulled it, went to propane. We had to rely on the propane, which in a sense we still kind of do. And once I went through 2 winters ago with that, never again. Never again. This is our source right here. And she will knock you out the front door. So not only are you going to be toasty warm, you got to work for it, you got to work for your wood, but this is going to help you in a secondary skill, which we'll talk about, which is an obvious thing, which is going to be, you're going to be cooking on it. And you can't replace that skill. People, that's a lost art. Misty can, we have seen that with Miss Misty. The next thing I want to talk about, which is pretty general, which is a shock, which you can tell I'm not exactly a decompressed person, so slowing down is very difficult. It's going to force you to slow down. In terms of my health has improved tenfold simply by taking on this lifestyle. Yes, I wear myself out, and my knees may hurt a little bit in the evening, but your whole life shifts to a slow down, to a time going back to where my stress level, things I stress about are not what I stressed about in Knoxville. And so I find myself, we're healthier people. My kids are healthier just by taking on this type of lifestyle. So that's going to be great for you. I mean, that's pretty nice. Barns and flowers and goats and, snuggling up with the great parenting. So that's a good deal. That's a good day. The next thing you need to know, which is a no-brainer, even whether you homestead or not, it's easy to go, I know this. You must think ahead. We are 30 miles from the nearest Walmart. That's no lie. You run out of cat food, you've got to travel to get your cat food. There's no Weigels down the road. There's nothing around us. We don't even have a stop. We have a stop sign. That's it. We don't have and a flashing light. So you just need to know already that this situation right here of some sort is going to happen. I don't know how it affected West Tennessee this year, but the ice storm that hit us in February was from Cookeville down to Crossville and up down through the mountains was crippling. I mean, crippling. I mean, people died. So we know that, and so we went through that. If you go through one situation like that, it just drives the point home. Be sure you have the things that you know you need on hand. Don't wait. I know we all do it, but it's true. Have your cat food. Have your medicine. If these things are something that you run out of, make sure you know how to make them or duplicate them in some natural way at home on your own. That goes back to your skill set. Because you're not driving in that. It's not pretty. It wasn't fun to play in. We had no electricity, and you were falling the minute you hit the ice with this type of situation this year. So think about that. Goes back to be prepared. This goes back to your skill set too. That's my sauerkraut. So it's really nice to go out to say, okay, I didn't go to the grocery store and I can't get out today, and da-da-da-da-da. And you go, well, let's see what I've got in my pantry. So think about those things. I know Mamaw told you that, but it can get really bad. So think about those things. That goes for your animals, your kids, your medications, wood. You cannot have enough wood. No.
Yes, you twice.
Just keep chopping. Don't stop. You just don't stop. You just keep going. Know your neighbors. Bless his heart. This is one of our neighbors on the very far back around from us, and we don't have a tractor currently. That's something we are working towards. As you know, they're not cheap, and so that's a goal. So we do a little, bartering. He comes and he'll turn our land for a dozen eggs. So, because he loves to help everybody out. So, knowing your neighbors. A lot of people are intimidated when they move from city. It's true. Moving from city to a rural community that's tight knit. It's hard to break into that bubble. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but the second they really truly know that you're trying and that you're doing, they will be your best friend. It has been life-changing for my children to be around folks like this. So know your neighbors, get to know them, work on a sense of community with them. Yeah, you're going to be the city kid. They're going to make fun of you a little bit. That's okay. You show them how to cover their potatoes with straw and all the cool City Life organic stuff. And when those potatoes come up and they've got a better harvest than they did last year, they're going to be bringing apple butter and all kinds of good stuff. So, and reciprocate all of those things. Don't be afraid. This is some of our other neighbors who built our barn. It was one man, one woman, and their 2 daughters in skirts. Built our barn. So, they got the job done. So, know your neighbors. It's pretty good.